I'm very honored and grateful to the International Juvenile Justice Observatory for having selected me as a recipient of the Juvenile Justice Without Borders Award for 2024. When I served as United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, I carried out 18 official fact-finding missions to countries in all world regions. Since torture is always taking place behind closed doors, I spent most of my time on mission in institutions, in prisons, in police lockups, migration detention centers, special centers for children with disabilities and other institutions. And I saw a lot of misery. I found torture in 17 of those 18 countries, and in more than half of them it's a routine practice by the police. And when I spoke to detainees, whether adult or children, and I asked them, have you been tortured? They said, yes, of course, everybody who is arrested by the police is beaten up or subjected to quite serious torture. So the first 3 days and nights in police custody was terrible, very painful. But if I compare them to the years afterwards that I spent now in prison, in totally inhuman conditions, where we are treated worse than animals, that is much worse. And that's what I found. Inhuman conditions in most countries of the world. That means overcrowding of prisons, appalling hygienic conditions, the lack of human rights, empathy, no education, no health care, no food, no water. It's one of the really worst situations that you can imagine, and I really talked about a global prison crisis at the end of my mandate. So I saw a lot of misery in detention, but the worst is if you see children behind bars. In many countries, the minimum age of criminal responsibility is as low as 7. And it was heartbreaking to see 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old children already sentenced to prison terms. Usually the poorest sectors of society, the most disadvantaged, the most discriminated. Street children who are simply picked up because they were stealing or begging in order to survive, and then sentenced to a prison term. So these reports and terrible experiences as Special Rapporteur on Torture were probably the reason why the United Nations Secretary General appointed me in 2016 to lead as independent expert the United Nations Global Study on Children Deprived of Liberty. The law is actually excellent. Article 37b of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child clearly says that the arrest, detention and imprisonment of children may be used only as a measure of last resort and only for the shortest appropriate period of time. And that's a very wise provision, because adults can be deprived of liberty if they are accused of a crime or sentenced for a crime or for migration detention, etc. But children suffer much more. They are at an age where they develop their personality, their talents, and if you lock them up, you deprive them of their childhood. So that's why we looked into the reality. We collected the data, we did research, we brought all those evidence together, and there is a huge gap between the high aspirations of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the devastating reality on the ground. While UNICEF thought there's about 1 million children in detention, we found on the basis of data, and that's a very conservative estimate, that 7.2 million children are per annum, annually, deprived of liberty in various institutions. So it is the responsibility of all the actors in the criminal justice system, and that's the police, the prosecutors, the justice system, judges, prison directors, to apply the principle of diversion. And that means to do whatever they can to divert children from the criminal justice system to the child welfare system and find alternatives to detention. That's their legal obligation under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And it is our responsibility to ensure that children are not left behind, and in particular not left behind bars. So this Juvenile Justice Without Borders Award is not only for me, it's for all those persons who tirelessly worked for 3 years to gather all the data, to do research, to prepare the global study, and to disseminate them. It's UN agencies, non-governmental organizations, children whose voices were very important for the global study, and the academic community that we prepared and disseminated the global study. And I'm particularly grateful to all my colleagues at the Global Campus of Human Rights, which is a network of more than 100 universities worldwide, specialized in human rights education and also in children's rights, that they were very active in participating in the global study on children deprived of liberty. And I'm very grateful to them and to the International Juvenile Justice Observatory for this honor of receiving this award. Thank you very much.